This is why junior associates shouldn't lead client presentations. Colin's voice cut sharply through the conference room, interrupting me mid-sentence. His words echoed off the glass walls as my heart dropped. Every head turned from the infrastructure schematics on the screen to my flushed face. Your alternative model lacks field-tested practicality. The traditional layout has served us for decades. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to steady myself as Colin leaned back smugly. He'd only been director of development at ClearBrook Infrastructure in Charlotte, North Carolina for 7 months, but he had already made it his mission to shut down any suggestion from staff under 40. Before I could respond, the client, an older woman from the city's environmental department, tilted her head, studying my name tag. "Wait a minute," she said, leaning forward. "Are you related to Harold Kessler, the man who redefined stormwater management during the Gulf floods?" Colin stiffened. His smirk vanished. "Yes," I said softly. "He's my grandfather." Let me pause here. Not every act of revenge looks like a mic drop. Sometimes it's quiet, precise, earned. If you've ever been underestimated, especially by someone in a suit who talks over you, you'll understand why I couldn't let this slide. My name is Marissa Kessler, and I'm 30 years old. I've spent most of my life trying to make a name without writing my family legacy. Harold Kessler isn't just an engineer, he's the engineer. His emergency storm channel designs are taught in civil engineering courses nationwide. Being his granddaughter meant I was expected to be brilliant and accused of nepotism whenever I succeeded. So I took a different path. After graduating from Georgia Tech, I scrubbed my resume, removed honors leadership roles, and most importantly, my last name's legacy. When I applied to ClearBrook in 2020, my grandfather didn't even know. One phone call from him could have landed me a lead engineer role. Instead, I came in at the bottom, an entry-level analyst grinding twice as hard to prove I belonged. For nearly 3 years, I earned every modest promotion through performance alone. My former manager, Sasha, supported innovation, but everything shifted when she left, and Colin took over. Colin came from a high-bill firm in Boston. Flashy suits, flashier slides, but his ideas were stale. He rejected 4 forward-thinking designs in his first 2 weeks, including my floodplain optimization system that would have saved the city over $9 million. And now, in front of a client, he tried to silence me. He was about to regret that. Colin's mantra became, "We follow proven protocols. Innovation comes with seniority." The morning of that pivotal client meeting, I'd spent hours refining my alternative drainage solution. Charlotte's infrastructure was crumbling under modern pressure. Another rainy season without upgrades would mean blocked roads, flooded basements, and months of disruptive construction. My model reduced construction time by 50% and increased water dispersal efficiency by nearly 30%. It was elegant, cost-effective, and scalable. But Colin hadn't even reviewed the proposal before walking into the conference room. Once the client recognized my last name, though, everything changed. Colin's tone shifted. "Ms. Kessler has been a valuable contributor," he said, awkwardly, though still gaining hands-on expertise. "Perhaps we should compare both strategies." The city's environmental planning director, Gwendolyn Sykes, took off her glasses. "I'd very much like to hear Ms. Kessler's complete proposal. Having Harold's granddaughter on this initiative is a fortunate development." The meeting flipped on its head. Colin suddenly nodded at every slide I presented, calling my work insightful and visionary. The same work he had dismissed earlier without a second glance. But instead of pride, I felt hollow. The attention wasn't because I had earned it, it was because of who raised me. As I returned to my desk, Aisha Grant, my colleague, fell in step beside me. "That was wild," she whispered. "He looked like he swallowed a whole lemon when she mentioned your grandfather." Aisha had joined ClearBrook a few months after me. Quiet, brilliant, sharp instincts. She designed a groundbreaking gray water filtration system, last Q1. Colin rejected without reading the feasibility data. We'd bonded over late nights and shared frustration. "I hate that this is what it took," I admitted. 2 years of building credibility gone the second my name meant something else. "Maybe now he'll think twice before shutting you down," Aisha offered. "He'll still shut you down," I said. "And anyone who doesn't look like him." Aisha shrugged. "Black women in engineering. It's never easy, but we endure. We push. That night, Colin emailed me requesting a private meeting the next morning. He greeted me with a smile too wide to be genuine. Marissa, I've been reviewing your performance. You've exceeded expectations. I think it's time we give you more responsibility. I kept my tone cool. Interesting timing? His grin twitched. I've always appreciated your perspective. You made yourself very clear yesterday, I said, folding my hands. Both before and after you learned my last name. Before and after learning who my grandfather is, I said calmly. Colin leaned back in his chair. Harold Kessler's contributions are legendary, he admitted. But that's not why I asked to meet. The city project needs leadership with your kind of vision. I'd like you to take point on the drainage redesign. It was the role I'd been working toward for years, but this wasn't how I'd imagined earning it. And if I decline? I asked. Colin blinked. Why would you? It's a career step forward. I want to be promoted because of merit, I replied. Not because you're afraid my grandfather might pick up the phone? His jaw tensed. That's unfair. Your work deserves recognition. It deserved it yesterday too, I countered. And Aisha's filtration system didn't even get a fair review. He frowned. There were technical concerns, which you never investigated because she's a junior engineer. Colin sighed, rubbing his temple. Look, I get it. Yesterday wasn't handled well. But this opportunity, I'll take it on one condition, I interrupted. Aisha's system gets a full evaluation and a real testing budget. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. I can arrange that. I left his office torn. I'd fought for Aisha, but at what price? Would the team now see me as someone who cashed in on her legacy name? Over the next few weeks, Colin's behavior toward me changed dramatically. He invited me to senior strategy meetings, quoted my feedback during planning calls, and constantly referenced how he'd always seen potential in me. But when it came to everyone else, nothing had changed. Junior staff were still sidelined. Proposals were still tossed aside, unread. Aisha's system finally entered testing, but with bare-bones support. No access to upgraded simulations, limited staff, and compressed deadlines. Under those conditions, it underperformed. Colin offered a tight smile. See, interesting idea, but the execution doesn't hold. I watched Aisha nod, shoulders slumped. Months of work discarded like a faulty draft. That night, I finally called my grandfather. Grandpa, how did you deal with people who couldn't see past their own way of doing things? His laugh was warm and knowing. Ah, you've met one of those, huh? Engineering's full of them. They think tradition is truth. Colin's stifling progress, I said, especially from younger engineers. The old guard grandpa replied. They forget every proven method started as an experiment someone once believed in. He paused. Does he know you're Harold's granddaughter? If this story spoke to you, don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next will remind you that the quiet ones don't just survive. They lead. I hesitated. He does now. That's part of your challenge, Grandpa said calmly. He's treating you differently, but still dismissing everyone else. So what do I do? You've got leverage, he said. Use it wisely. I don't want special treatment. Then don't use it for yourself, he said. Use it for others. His words stuck with me all night. The next morning, a company-wide email hit our inboxes. The annual Innovation Challenge was now open. The winning team would receive full funding and implementation support, along with performance bonuses and visibility with the board. This was the opening we needed. Over lunch, I pulled Aisha aside. Let's submit a joint proposal. Your filtration system paired with my adaptive distribution framework. She blinked. You think they go for that? They don't have to. The judging panel includes board members and external evaluators. Not Colin. But if we win, he'll still oversee implementation. I smiled. Exactly. We began mapping the plan that weekend. We designed a proposal so airtight, so technically refined, that it couldn't be ignored, yet complex enough that Colin wouldn't grasp its architecture. He would have two choices: admit his lack of understanding or bluff his way through. Aisha and I worked late into the evenings, layering my modular flow network with her filtration design. The final product, a citywide stormwater management system that could reduce overflow events by 60%, cut costs by 35%, and increase overall water quality metrics. When the submission form asked for project oversight recommendations, I didn't put our names. Instead, I wrote, Senior Oversight, Colin Shaw, Technical Development Kessler Grant Team. Aisha glanced over my shoulder. Why give him that visibility? It's not about credit, I said. It's about capability or lack of it. 2 weeks later, the finalist list was posted. We made the cut. Colin summoned me to his office immediately. Congratulations. He beamed. Fantastic work. And thank you for naming me as project overseer. You're the director, I said smoothly. It made sense. Right? Of course. He hesitated. I'll need a full technical briefing. Naturally. I nodded. Of course. He smiled again. And since I'll be presenting to the board, actually, I interrupted contest rules specify that the lead engineer must demonstrate full technical comprehension during the final presentation. His smile wavered. Oh, right. Of course. I'll present the overview Colin offered, and you can handle any detailed questions. Actually, I replied the guidelines state that the listed project lead must demonstrate full technical comprehension. Supporting members aren't allowed to answer during the board Q&A. The color drained from Colin's face. I see. Well, we should schedule some technical reviews then. Over the next week, we held 3 private sessions. Aisha and I walked him through the design, slowly at first, then layering in increasingly complex systems, logic. We explained enough for him to feel like he understood only to follow up with terminology and calculations that spun him in circles. By the final session, he was visibly overwhelmed. Maybe we should simplify the slides, he suggested. The board includes 3 PhDs in environmental engineering, I reminded him. They'll expect precision. He stayed late that night, reviewing materials, trying to patch holes in his understanding. But when he walked into the boardroom the next morning, the tension behind his eyes betrayed the polished smile on his face. The presentation started smoothly. He read the slides, verbatim nodded at charts, referenced our metrics. But then, Dr. Carmen Abernathy raised her hand. Can you explain the pressure differential mechanics in the second phase filtration module? Colin hesitated, then launched into a vague answer that sounded rehearsed and slightly off. He glanced my way, silently pleading. I kept my expression neutral as the board exchanged looks. Dr. Abernathy spoke again. Perhaps we should hear from the technical developers, Ms. Kessler, Ms. Grant. While protocol suggests, Mr. Shaw should answer, would you be willing to elaborate? Colin had no choice but to nod. Of course. Aisha and I stepped forward and explained everything. Design flow module, efficiency rates, stress, tolerance specs flawlessly. The board leaned in with interest. Questions came rapidly, and we answered them with clarity and confidence. A week later, the winners were announced. Our project was selected unanimously. The board's official feedback praised the revolutionary integration of filtration and adaptive flow logic, with technical leadership clearly demonstrated by the development team. That afternoon, upper management threw a brief celebration. Colin stood off to the side, smiling stiffly as department heads congratulated him for fostering such innovation. No one mentioned his flubbed answers or the fact that he barely understood the system. In corporate America, the machine still ran, the same credit flowed upward. But that was about to change. That evening, as Aisha and I shared a quiet dinner downtown to celebrate our win, she finally asked the question I'd been avoiding. So, what now? We won, but Colin still looks great in management's eyes. I twirled a strand of pasta around my fork thinking, that was just phase 1. Implementation is where things start getting interesting. We had 6 months to move from prototype to full deployment. Plenty of time for things to go very right or very wrong. Colin wasted no time. He scheduled our first stakeholder technical review for the following week, positioning himself as project lead. The morning of the meeting, he called me into his office. I've prepped the slides, he said, proudly turning his monitor to show me. I simplified the technical content more digestible for the stakeholders. I reviewed them. Our complex multi-phase filtration and flow balancing system had been reduced to basic flow charts and animated arrows. Key algorithms were gone. These diagrams leave out essential mechanisms, I said flatly. They're inaccurate. Too much detail will confuse the audience, Colin argued. 3 of the 5 stakeholders are engineers. They'll see the gaps in 5 seconds, I countered. He sighed. Fine. Add whatever you need, but keep them in the appendix. We'll only reference them if someone asks. I nodded and returned to my desk where Aisha was already waiting. He's setting himself up perfectly, I whispered. That afternoon, I inserted our detailed technical slides into a separate file, ready but not buried. The following morning, the review began. Colin started confidently breezing through his oversimplified presentation with buzzwords and animated icons. 5 minutes in, the city's chief municipal engineer raised her hand. This overview seems to skip over the pressure. Differential mechanics, wasn't that what made your system superior to conventional solutions? Colin hesitated. Well, yes, the differential pressure enables optimal flow efficiency through advanced dynamics. The stakeholders exchanged glances. Perhaps a more detailed explanation, the engineer pressed. Colin turned to me, eyes silently pleading. I opened my laptop. If I may, I prepared additional slides that clarify that aspect. I presented the full model detailing our system's modular filtration layers, adaptability under variable load, and comparative cost-performance data. Colin stood silently nearby occasionally, adding exactly what we envisioned. By the end, the room was nodding. As we packed up, the municipal engineer pulled me aside. Ms. Kessler, she said warmly, I'd appreciate if we could contact you directly for technical questions going forward. Colin heard every word. Colin overheard and quickly inserted himself. All communication should go through proper channels. As project director, the municipal engineer cut him off smoothly. For technical questions, I'd prefer to speak directly with Ms. Kessler. Efficiency, you understand. That exchange set the tone. Over the next several meetings, the pattern repeated. Colin would open the session, get derailed by technical questions, and reluctantly hand things over to Aisha or me. Each time, his authority dimmed. Ours strengthened. 3 months into implementation, we hit our first major obstacle, an unexpected groundwater swell that threatened to delay construction. Colin called an emergency meeting. He looked visibly rattled. This could set us back by weeks, he said. We'll need to revert to the original drainage system for this section. Aisha raised her hand. Actually, our system can handle this. The modular components allow for real-time reconfiguration based on site conditions. Colin didn't even pause. That's too experimental. We can't afford more delays. It's not experimental, I countered. That flexibility is why the design won the innovation challenge. It's made to adapt. Concept is one thing, he insisted. Execution is another. My decision is final. I leaned forward. Then we'll need to notify the stakeholders. Switching back to the old design will increase costs by at least 30% and delay the timeline by 5 weeks. That change requires formal approval. Colin froze. His face paled. The entire project was being monitored by upper management as a model of efficiency. Admitting failure now, after months of praise and publicity, would spark scrutiny he wasn't prepared to face. Perhaps he said slowly, we should test Aisha's approach before deciding. We did. Her redesign worked flawlessly. No delays, no additional costs, just clean, adaptable execution. That win further solidified our credibility and exposed Colin's resistance to innovation as the liability it was. As the project neared completion, the results were better than we hoped. Water quality across the district improved by 40%. Operational costs fell by 25%. Local media took notice. Articles ran in city papers. Officials praised the project's bold, forward-thinking design. Soon, word spread. 3 neighboring counties reached out, asking to meet about replicating the system. Colin jumped at the chance to lead the presentations, eager to reclaim the spotlight he had gradually lost. But what happened next? Well, that would be his final lesson. The evening before the first county presentation, I received a call from Diane Ellison, our original municipal client. "Marissa," she said warmly, "I wanted to give you a heads up. The commissioners were blown away by the results of your system. They're proposing an expanded regional rollout." I sat upright. "That's unexpected." "Not to us," Diane replied. "They specifically requested that you lead the next phase. They believe you're the one who truly understands the system. Your director will be informed tomorrow morning, but I thought you deserved to hear it first." The next day, Colin walked into the presentation room with renewed swagger, completely unaware of what was coming. He delivered his usual polished overview, sprinkling in technical buzzwords he didn't quite grasp. When he finished, the county executive smiled and addressed the room. "We're ready to move forward with an expanded implementation across 3 counties," he announced. "We'd like Ms. Kessler to serve as project lead. Her technical mastery and execution have impressed our consultants at every step." Colin's smile cracked. "Ms. Kessler is very talented," he began. "But as her director, I would naturally oversee any larger implementation." The executive didn't flinch. "Our proposal specifically requires Ms. Kessler's leadership. That aspect is non-negotiable." Colin nodded stiffly, struggling to keep his composure. "Understood. We'll discuss the logistics internally and respond shortly." Back at the office, he called me into his office almost immediately. "This creates an unusual reporting structure," he began. "Perhaps we could propose co-leadership for the project." I kept my tone even. "The client's expectations seem pretty clear." "Expectations can be negotiated," he said, straining for control. "I bring far more management experience to the table." "That's true," I acknowledged, "but they're prioritizing deep technical expertise for this initiative." Before he could reply, his phone rang. It was a call from the CEO's office requesting an immediate meeting upstairs. He returned nearly an hour later, face unreadable. The next morning, the company-wide announcement hit inboxes. A new innovation implementation division was being created focused on cutting-edge water solutions. I was named division head. Aisha was appointed deputy director. The expanded regional project would be our first official assignment. Colin, meanwhile, retained his title but was reassigned to manage conventional infrastructure projects. The CEO's statement read, "This restructuring allows us to scale the innovation of Marissa Kessler and Aisha Grant, while honoring our ongoing commitment to proven processes under Colin Shaw's experienced guidance." In corporate language, Colin had just been sidelined without losing his title. Colin's path to upward mobility had all but disappeared, while ours surged forward. Our new division, the Innovation Implementation Group, received double the resources of traditional departments. We hired 8 new engineers, all chosen for their creativity, collaboration skills, and willingness to challenge outdated norms. Our team relocated to the newly renovated East Wing. It had floor-to-ceiling windows, state-of-the-art labs, and direct access to prototyping spaces. No titles on doors, no locked offices, just open workstations and glass walls that reflected how we operated, transparent and team-driven. 3 months in, I received an unexpected email. Subject: request to discuss potential transfer. From Colin Shaw. He arrived the next morning in muted tones. His usual tailored blazer replaced by a plain button-up. His trademark confidence had softened into something more cautious. "Thanks for seeing me," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk, the same chair I once stood beside when I was a junior analyst. "Of course," I replied evenly. "What can I help you with?" "I've been following your division's work," he began. "The innovations, the results, it's all very impressive. I've been thinking about my own future, and I believe I could contribute more meaningfully in a forward-looking environment like this." I nodded slowly, letting the moment sit. "I'd like to request a transfer," he continued. "I believe my experience could complement your technical team." There it was. The same man who once cut me off in front of clients was now asking to work under me. "Interesting," I said, echoing his old tone from meetings where he dismissed my proposals. "What exactly would you bring to our team?" He shifted slightly. "Project management, Coordination. I know how to move pieces efficiently. We've developed streamlined protocols that reduce deployment timelines by 40%, I said. Still, I appreciate your interest. He offered a hopeful smile tinged with desperation. We both knew his department had become a shadow of its former self. Minimal funding, no executive visibility, and declining morale. Part of me wanted to reject him outright. Let him feel the sting of being overlooked, but that wasn't the point anymore. I wasn't chasing revenge, I was building something better. I'll consider your request, I said. But you should know this team operates differently. We value contribution, not hierarchy. Everyone is expected to innovate regardless of title. Can you handle that? Absolutely, he said quickly. A little too quickly. I've always valued fresh perspectives, Colin said. I nodded, choosing not to challenge the revisionist history of a man who once called my work unrealistic. I'll discuss your request with the team, I said. We'll let you know. That evening, I met Aisha for dinner at our usual spot near campus. You're not seriously considering bringing him in, are you? She asked, eyebrows raised. I am, I said. But not for the reasons he thinks, I explained. Letting Colin experience firsthand how a true innovation-driven environment works, where collaboration trumps ego, would be far more powerful than turning him away. Aisha leaned back, considering. And where would he even fit? I smiled. The water filtration optimization team is still short one engineer. Under my supervision, she said, blinking. Exactly, but only if you're comfortable with it. A slow, knowing smile spread across her face. I think I can manage that assignment. 1 week later, Colin received formal notification of his transfer. His new title, Senior Project Coordinator. His direct report, Deputy Director Aisha Grant. His assignment, Filtration System Optimization Team. Gone were his days of private offices and corner conference rooms. Now he worked beside the same people he once dismissed, sharing desk clusters in an open concept workspace with glass dividers and open door policies. Even I didn't have a private office. We believed in transparency and accessibility concepts Colin would now have to live with. During orientation, he learned how our division operated. Ideas were submitted anonymously, judged solely on merit. Feedback was open, respectful, and specific. Seniority didn't override insight, and credit was publicly shared at every stage of implementation. At first, Colin tried to dominate discussions, leaning on past roles, industry jargon, and vague references to experience. But none of it stuck. He quickly realized that substance, not swagger, shaped influence here. So he began listening, then asking better questions, and eventually contributing meaningfully. 3 months in, he offered a smart adjustment to a fluid dynamics challenge on the East Corridor filtration grid. The team implemented his idea and credited him fully. At the next division meeting, Aisha acknowledged his input alongside others. Colin's reaction was surprisingly humble, grateful even. One night, as the office emptied out, I noticed him helping a junior engineer troubleshoot a simulation error. No titles, no posturing, just 2 minds working together. As he packed up to leave, he noticed me watching and walked over to my desk. I need to say something. Colin began, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. I understand now what you were trying to tell me all those months ago, about evaluating ideas on merit, not seniority. He paused. About how important junior voices are. I was wrong and I'm sorry. I nodded. I didn't downplay the apology or brush it aside. It meant something. This division, he continued, glancing around the open floor, runs the way engineering should. People contribute based on what they know, not where they sit on the org chart. That was always the goal, I replied. Good engineering doesn't protect territory. It finds the best solution, no matter who it comes from. Colin nodded thoughtfully. I wish I'd seen that sooner. He turned to leave, but I called after him. Colin, your modification to the Eastern County Flow Regulation. It was genuinely smart. You should expand on it. His eyes widened slightly. The surprise and gratitude on his face confirmed what I had long suspected. Underneath the condescension had always been someone who wanted to contribute meaningfully. He'd just forgotten how. If you want to call it revenge, you could, but it wasn't about taking Colin down. I never wanted to ruin his career or drag his name through the mud. What I wanted was bigger. I wanted to build something that couldn't be ignored, a culture where merit led the way, where collaboration silenced ego, and where people like Colin had to watch every day as the very system they resisted surpassed their own. Now he worked daily under Aisha's direction, reporting to someone whose ideas he once dismissed without a second glance. He listened, he learned, and eventually he contributed. His world had flipped. He was surrounded by engineers he once called too inexperienced, watching their innovations take the spotlight he used to chase. And somehow, instead of breaking him, it was reshaping him. The greatest satisfaction didn't come from seeing him stumble. It came from building something better, an engineering division where good ideas rise, where everyone gets a voice, and where humility and excellence go hand in hand. That I think would make my grandfather proud. If you've made it this far, thank you for hearing my story and witnessing how I fought not with anger, but with integrity, purpose, and quiet resolve. I didn't want a dramatic takedown. I wanted to build something that couldn't be ignored. So now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been dismissed or underestimated simply because of your title, age, gender, or background? Drop your experience in the comments. Tell me how you handled it. And if you were forced to stay quiet at first, but found your own way to rise, I'm especially listening. Let's support one another. Leave a word of encouragement, not just for me, but for everyone out there who's trying to prove they're more than what others see. And if my journey resonated with you, consider this. Your reminder you don't need to fight dirty to win. You don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes the smartest revenge is creating something so solid, so excellent, that even your doubters end up learning from you. So hit that like button if you believe in quiet power. Subscribe if you believe leadership should be earned, not inherited. And remember, build systems where others can rise with you.